Good evening. We want to be respectful of everyone's time tonight. We're going to go ahead and start on time. Welcome, and thank you for coming out on such a beautiful night to make your city stronger. This is the fourth of the 12 scheduled listening sessions. Thank you, Vice Mayor Wilson, for being here. I'm Elise Sowdy, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jane Dittmar. We are UVA Weldon Center, Cooper Center, and we are teaming up with your city to facilitate tonight's meeting. A few housekeeping reminders before we get started. Bathrooms can be found out into the hall on the right. Our emergency exits are to the right and to the side. Please silence your cell phones. If you do need to take a call, you may do so in the hallway, and then you can rejoin us when you're done.
Our role tonight as facilitators is to make sure that you are heard, and we'll also manage the time. It looks like with the numbers here, we have plenty of time, so that won't be an extraordinary effort on our part. Your role is, if you're speaking, to stay within your time limit, which is 3 minutes, and also to listen respectfully. We do have people joining us live stream who you cannot see, and so we ask the same of them. Let's see. The purpose of the meeting, as we are told, is for you to give input. Now, you may be here to listen as well instead of giving input, and you'll find out different ways that you can give input if you're not going to speak tonight in a little while. And your city council is interested in hearing about your experience with the election system. So it could be about the districts and it could be about other items. We are interested in all of it because they are. And so let's talk a little bit about how we're going to capture your comment. First of all, we're listening, and then it will be transcribed word for word, verbatim. So we have those transcriptions. There is a video being taken for the forever record. We will be taking notes as well. All of this and key findings will be given to City Council as they consider their work.
Now, next steps. What happens after this meeting? A key findings report will be written up from each listening session to be compiled for the City Council. A survey will be mailed out to a random selection of constituents. Now, if you do not receive the survey, you will have another way to share your comments if you do not tonight. There is the speakupvb.com is the website where you will be able to share additional comments if you do not share tonight. If you prefer to call and leave a voicemail, you can do so at 855-925-2801. I'll say that one more time. At 855-925-2801. There you can also leave a voicemail comment if you do not share tonight. Now, if for any reason you have a comment not about tonight's issue, you can send an email to letterjtorres, TORRES, at vbgov.com. Now, along with the key findings found from the 12 listening sessions and the survey that goes out, the legal team is researching legal options for the council to consider in conjunction with the key findings from all of the other avenues. That report will be given to council, and later this summer, they will be reviewing all the information gathered from these engagements. Now, we travel and work with a lot of localities. We want to thank you for being here and being engaged in your city to share your opinions on this issue. Now, before we begin to hear from all of you, we want to turn your attention to the screen as we see a short video to provide some background on how we got here tonight. Thank you.
Prior to 2022, our local election system remained mostly unchanged since 1967. The city charter defined our local election system as having 11 members. 4 were chosen at large with no residency requirement, including the mayor, and 7 more were elected at large, but had to reside within one of the former districts. The charter also stated that school board members would be elected in the same manner as their city council counterparts. In November 2017, a lawsuit was filed against the city. The suit alleged that the at-large system violated the Federal Voting Rights Act by diluting the voting power of minorities. Specifically, the plaintiffs contended that the former voting system diluted the voting strength of a coalition of Black, Hispanic, and Asian minority groups. The city defended the lawsuit, contending that no single minority group was large and compact enough to constitute a majority within a single voting district. The city also asserted that it was not reasonable to combine Black voters with Asian and Hispanic voters, since Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act did not authorize combining minority groups, and that the 3 minority groups specifically mentioned do not vote cohesively as one group. While the lawsuit was pending, the Virginia General Assembly considered and adopted legislation that would require changes to the election system, regardless of the outcome of the case. House Bill 2198 made it so that localities with district or ward-based residency requirements for members of a governing body must elect its members by the qualified members of that district or ward, and not by the locality at large. Further, House Bill 1890 and Senate Bill 1395, known as the Virginia Voting Rights Act, clarified that any at-large method of election shall not be imposed by the governing body in a manner that impairs the ability of a protected class to elect candidates of its choice or its ability to influence an election. Both pieces of legislation also apply to school boards. In March of 2021, the district court said that the city's voting system violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The court concluded that the coalition claims were legally permissible and that the minority groups specifically mentioned in the case were politically cohesive. The court prohibited the city from using the former system in any future elections. Following the March 2021 ruling of the district court, a special master created new election district maps for the city using data from the 2020 census, ensuring they were equally populated. They were drawn in a manner that, in the court's view, would allow a sufficient majority of minority populations to facilitate the election of minority groups' candidates of choice, including the creation of 3 minority opportunity districts. Under the new 10-1 system, 10 city council members and 10 school board members are elected from each of the districts. Only the mayor continues to be elected at large and can reside anywhere in the city. The city appealed the district court's decision to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. In July of 2022, a 3-judge panel ruled that the lower court erred in its decision and vacated the district court's decisions and remedy. This decision left the city free to consider options other than the 10-1 system in future elections. However, it was too late to effectively implement a new system in time for the November 2022 election cycle. In November of 2022, residents went to the polls and cast their votes for the city council and school board candidates of their choice using the 10-1 system that had been ordered by the district court. 161,753 ballots were cast, and the outcome was the election of the city's most diverse slate of representatives. Since the court order that implemented the 10-1 system is no longer in effect, and the former system of electing local representatives is still on the books in the city charter, it became apparent that City Council would need to formally adopt a new method in time for the 2024 elections. In order to ensure that residents had a say in the direction that City Council opts to pursue, they passed a resolution in December of 2022 to begin a community engagement campaign to educate and inform residents on what legally viable options are available for the city. Following the community engagement period, Virginia Beach residents will be asked to participate in a survey in April. A random sampling of residents will receive a survey in the mail. However, an online version will be available to all residents, with results shared with council and the community this summer. In conclusion, a decision on our election system must be made by City Council in time for the 2024 election. Thank you for joining us today. This is your opportunity to provide input on city policy development and decision-making.
So that's quite a journey, and that brought us all together tonight, and for all the rest of the listening sessions that are being held. Want to go over a few of our procedures for the input session, which begins now. First of all, you'll notice a mic here on this aisle. A name will be called, and then the backup name will be called. We'll have one speaker at a time speaking. You have 3 minutes to make your comment, and there will be a timer. In fact, that's what Elise is doing right now, is setting our timer. We're going to set it for 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and that will give you then 15 seconds to wrap up your comments. So each person has equal time. When you're finished, if all you did was come here tonight to make comment and you want to leave, feel free to do that. If you'd like to stay and listen to the entire listening session, you're welcome to do that as well. That's the signal. What we're asking, and this is what worked really well the last several listening sessions, is that you provide no sound effects in response to what you're hearing from a speaker at the mic. This is important because that might distract them and they'll lose time. It's very distracting for our live stream residents who are either just watching tonight or are also going to make comment. But we have a way for you to indicate support for a speaker without distraction, and that is if what someone is saying is what you would say if you were at the mic at that moment, just raise your hand and we'll count how many hands came up so that what we can do is add emphasis to that speaker's comments. So I think we're ready.
Our first speaker this evening is Melissa Luxon, and after Melissa Luxon will be Conrad Schizvinter. Apologies if I mispronounce any names this evening.
Before getting to my third history lesson, because I've been attending all these sessions, I would like to thank the city's communications department for rapidly responding to citizen suggestions. They quickly made these sessions more visible on the city website. I was impressed at the effort and response time and grateful to see action taken quickly. I want to continue sharing some Virginia Beach history they aren't willing to share. When the Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed, Virginia Beach ignored and circumvented federal law and maintained an at-large voting system. Then, in 1994, citizens gathered 28,000 signatures, forcing council to put a referendum on the ballot for voter input on changing to a more balanced district system. But elected officials at the state level conspired with council members to subvert the will of the voters and rewrote the 1994 referendum with ambiguous and even deceptive language and presented that to voters in 1996. But in 2020, former council member Jessica Abbott brought forth a resolution asking council to pass a referendum for that year's election, asking whether members of council should be elected on a district basis rather than an at-large basis. Unfortunately, it failed with a 7-4 vote. Vice Mayor Rosemary Wilson was one of those no votes. Council members who voted no stated they didn't want to rush an essential public input process. Yet here we are, 12 public input sessions in 10 days at the very low cost of almost $400,000 of taxpayer money. Here's a quote from Vice Mayor Wilson from July 2020. "The system is not meant to benefit the candidates. It is supposed to benefit the citizens and the city." Yet in December of 2022, she seemed eager to rush this public input campaign because she is up for re-election in 2024 in a district that she may not be able to win without a citywide vote. Mayor Dyer brought up 6 districts with 5 at-large seats in a recent workshop. Ask yourself, who is pushing for even more at-large seats than we had before? Could it be oceanfront developers and special interest groups with money? At-large seats uphold white supremacy because white people historically vote in a block to defeat candidates supported by the Black community. The pattern in this city is pervasive. The push in July 2020 for the November election was because statistics confirmed that presidential election years turn out the most voters. I find no irony, and neither should you, that council is rushing this process to get a referendum on the ballot in a year when data shows lower voter participation during off-year elections. Some people may ask, why am I so passionate about this issue? I'm tired of the targeted and systemic neglect of our city's
15
African-American residents and communities. The councilwoman and vice mayor that currently represents District 5, where we are convened right now, does not support the 10-1 system based on her votes. So if you are a strong proponent of 10-1 and live in District 5, please be sure to let Vice Mayor Rosemary Wilson know how you feel. I have copies of the 2020 resolution and council member votes for 2020 and 2023. Please see me if you want a copy or to look at it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Conrad Shezvinster, and after him will be Stephen Johnston.
I request switching my speaker time with Mr. Gary McCollum. He's pressed for time.
Can you please state your name at the mic?
Yes, I'm Gary McCullum, and I apologize for, I'm trying to be in 3 places at once tonight, but this was an important issue for me. You know, we are going to elect 140 members of the General Assembly this November, 40 senators and 100 House of Delegate members. No citizen in Virginia will vote for more than 1 delegate. No citizen in Virginia will vote for more than 1 senator. But yet we have people in this city who believe that we can and should vote for multiple people on city council and school board. That's not representative government. Your video, it was a good video, but it had some things in there that were not quite true, and I want to point them out. First, it said that that council must make a recommendation, or I'm sorry, a decision on the new system. No, they don't. They will make a recommendation, but not a decision, because that decision, this is a bill and rule state, will be made in the General Assembly. So that needs to be corrected in your video. Second, it said that they must come up with a new method. No, that's not the case. The method we have right now, 10-1, we can keep that. We don't have to come up with something new. And in fact, the 10-1 system worked because, as your video pointed out, it gave us the most diverse city council in the history of this city. Where I come from, if something isn't broke, you don't fix it. But we know why we're trying to, quote unquote, fix it, because the outcome of what happened in November was not to the liking of moneyed interests in this city. If certain people had won, I hate to say this, University of Virginia, but you wouldn't be sitting here with this $300,000 plus contract. You're sitting here today because there are people who did not like the outcome of that election. And so we're trying to figure out a way to undo that result. And so I stand here today saying that we need to keep 10-1. If it works for our General Assembly, it should work for the largest city in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The last thing I'll say with regard to your video is this. It talked about the case, the federal case that ruled that our system was discriminatory. That's what the court ruled. The city appealed that case. But your video said that the city won that appeal and that the court had erred in its decision. Not quite true. What the court did, and that appeal was won,
15 seconds.
but not based on the merits of the case. In other words, the discriminatory practices still exist here in Virginia Beach. And if we go and do anything other than a 10-1 system, I guarantee you those merits will be back in the court system again. Thank you for allowing me to go. Comrade, thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Johnston. When they wrote the Constitution of the United States, Benjamin Franklin was asked, "What kind of government did you give us?" And he said, "A representative republic, if you can keep it." Here in Virginia Beach, we've lost it. Yes, I support the 10-1 system. The more districts and the fewer voters who can decide on how many people go on council, I don't know if I've said that right, but is what I think is best. The problem with the system is not the 10-1. The problem that I see is the way they put it into place. City Council has a 10-1 system in place today. They've got 10 districts with 10 representatives and 1 at-large to the mayor. The school board, on the other hand, decided they were going to do their own thing. School board has a 7-2-2 system in place right now, where they've got 7 districts with a representative from those 7. They've got 2 at-large seats, which the 10-1 says should only be 1 district, 1 at-large. And then they've got 2 districts without any representation at all. The school board's going to spend almost $1 billion of our hard-earned tax money. And there are 20% of the citizens in Virginia Beach that have no vote or say on how they're going to do it. That is, one of the districts is our district here, District 5. The other one is District 7, Centerville. Centerville was listed in the federal court as being a majority district. And that's just not right to exclude these 2 districts from the decision-making on the school board. Excuse me. And if you look at the districting system they have on the school board, North Beach has 2 representatives. Bayside has 2 representatives. Princess Anne has 2 representatives on the school board. Why do these groups get 2? Because they're rich white folks. And I will say that straight to anybody who asks. Those are the richest and whitest areas of the city of Virginia Beach. And they're running our school system and they're doing it wrong. We need to vote. Our district here in Ocean Lakes, we need to be able to have a vote on the school board. And that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nancy Boble. Following Nancy Boble will be Conrad Schisventer.
I don't know if what I have to say really contributes to what these people are all thinking about. My concern was the fact that I didn't like the way the elections were run. I don't like the way the votes were counted. I don't like the way that people can manipulate and hack computers, like mine has been hacked so many times before that there's no way I can lock people out. I believe in going back to a paper voting and counting. And if it does, I would actually volunteer my time 24/7 until all the votes are counted. I also believe that people that want mail-in ballots should have to call in to request a mail-in ballot and then be given a code on that while they were on the phone. And they would write down that code. When they get their mail-in ballot, the envelope would have a little window in it where the person writes their code number and it goes into that envelope that they seal. And then when it's opened up, the people can properly count them to make sure they're actually verified. I don't agree with what had happened throughout the presidential elections. And I definitely believe that write-in ballots are the way to go. I've always remembered them as when I first started voting as a 17-year-old. And I remember always writing in my ballots and having people stand there counting them. And I think now that computers are hacked and wiggled into and manipulated by the other side, no matter who they are, left or right, or in between, I don't agree in computer counting. I don't believe in computer issuance. And I don't believe that anything having to do with a computer is justifiable during our most important elections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Conrad Schisventer, and following Conrad Schisventer will be Ella Dunbar.
We used to have a hybrid voting system with district candidates subject to citywide at-large voting. It created a problematic dilution of community representation, especially diluting our minority communities. My opinion, and opinion the battle cats of the community action team share, is our 10-to-1 voting system both fixes those faults and succeeds in creating a diverse representation with less moneyed corruption. Those overly concerned with electing all city races simultaneously are ones with sufficient money power to influence all city races simultaneously. I asked more people their opinions. My dad in District 10 says he prefers 10 to 1. It reduces political fundraising needs and logistics of citywide races. You have to run for your district only. My mom had no opinion on the voting system. My brother Kevin, and neighbor to Mayor Dyer, said he is Team 10-1 as well. His wife Faith, desire of at-home chicken ownership north of the Green Line, likes 10-1 better as it shook up City Council. My brother Stephen, near Glenwood Elementary, says 10-1 all day. He passively supports it as aggressively as possible. Megan Kennett, former finalist for the Beach District Council seat, believes 10-1 may pose too much segmentation and barriers to getting things done with ineffective leaders. Chiquita Thompson, of the Virginia Beach Minority Business Council, likes the 10-1 system as each citizen of each community should be allowed to pick who represents them. Charles Brown of the UE Local 111 likes 10-1. Don't take away voters' voices. Chris Hollis, also the UE Local 111, is with the 10-1 system and how it's for the people. The UE Local 111 strongly supports collective bargaining. Alicia Lynch, former co-worker of mine at the Oceanfront, thinks 10-1 worked well in 2022 and believes people should only vote on candidates that represent their districts because that's who affects the most. She feels it evens the playing field. She doesn't want someone residing out of her district voting for candidates in her district. Max Godano with the Virginia Beach Firefighters individually suggested he likes the 10-1 system. So I will say one political organization and 10 individuals mentioned here support 10-1. One had no opinion, one didn't like it. You might just say Virginia Beach supports 10-1 by 10-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ella Dunbar. Following Ella Dunbar is Tracy Murray.
Good evening. I'm here to speak in favor of the 10-1 system. It is the most representative way to vote, and changing it would negate equal representation. If you want to change it to some other thing where you have at-large members, then to me, it puts the thumb on the scale for the special interests. And for those who want to have an at-large system, I guess my question would be, what are you afraid of? Because, I mean, I think that my opinion should count just as much as someone out on the oceanfront who's a big developer or whatever. I want things from our neighborhood too. So we don't need at-large candidates to negate the will of the voter. And another thing that I think that we need is to have more voter education. I think on the internet and a whole lot of other various places, there's so much misinformation about how we vote, how the votes are counted. I've heard people say they would rather have paper ballots. If you've ever voted, you know that we do still have paper ballots. We do still have paper ballots. So if there's ever an issue, they can go back and be recounted. And all of the ballots, if someone gets a mail-in ballot, they do have a code on that. I worked the polls this past year. If someone received a absentee ballot and then they decided to come in and vote in person, it pops up on my screen that that person received an absentee ballot. And that issue has to be resolved before they can do anything. So if they say, well, I left it at home or I have it with me, then they can go ahead and cast it at that point. But if they left it at home or whatever, or don't know where it is, then they can still be allowed to vote. But we're going to negate that absentee ballot. And if that absentee ballot shows up later, it's null and void because it's already been put in the system that it is no good. So I know that there are all kinds of rumors and, you know, people think this happens with ballots and that happens with ballots. I think perhaps maybe they need to go and see exactly how the process works. Don't listen to what somebody's saying on the internet or some politician is saying over here and keep people all worked up thinking that, oh, it's just terrible what's going on. We had paper ballots and we've been using computers for quite some time. So now we've got the best of both worlds because we're using both. So I think that a lot of what's going on with people who are unsure about what we're doing, they should avail themselves the opportunity to go down to the registrar's office and maybe see how things are done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tracy Murray. Following Tracy Murray will be Gwinnett Beach.
Yes, good evening. I'm Tracy Murray, Murray, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the 10-1 system. I support it. I have just 4 key points that I would like to make. That I've lived in Virginia Beach my whole life, and I've had a lot of people who were qualified to run for positions in our city, to add to it, and just supported everyone in in our area. But they talked about the money factor, the fact that we needed money in order to do the ads, to run at these enlarged seats. So that should not be a reason for someone not to run to improve a position. They should, if they're qualified, they should be able to run, and money not being a factor. Secondly, in November, we went to the 10-1 system. It wasn't well publicized. I think that was intentional. But once that information was given out and people understood, we were smart. We knew that we had moved forward, and Virginia Beach still should continue to move forward. I would like to say that we do need to expand our early voting sites. Lots of emails have gone to our leadership about that. We need for them to check those emails and look at expanding our voter sites. And as we said before, yes, let's educate our citizens about the voting system. We do have a lot of things that are online, but I would love us to continue to have these town halls like this here, bring people together in the community and have them talk to each other face to face and have discussions about why we say what we say. And so everyone has a clear understanding of what it is that's being said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gwinnett Beach. And that concludes our list of in-person speakers. If I may, I do see that we have some attendees listening on the phone virtually. If they wish to speak and have their comments heard, please press star to access the menu and then select menu item 3 to be placed in the queue. Again, that's star and menu item 3. But at this time, no one is in the virtual speaker queue.
Okay. So we do have a bit more time. If anyone would like to come to the mic, you can state your name and you have 2 minutes and 45 seconds to share.
Good evening. My name is Timothy Erskine, Erskine. I am a recent Virginia Beach resident and kind of glad to see the old system gone. Having lived 50-some years in Ohio, voting in several different localities there, it just made no sense. The 10-1 system makes a lot of sense. What I am concerned about is the need to even consider something else. Changing the city charter to simply reflect the court order really shouldn't have this much expenditure, this much effort. Simply change the charter to codify what the court ordered. As a previous speaker pointed out, that this was a $189,000 contract initially to do this. And changing the system to the 10-1 system cost $250,000 just to inform the voters of the new system. That's just from one Virginia Pilot article. There's just too much money being spent at a time when inflation is uncertain, unstable. There's the constant specter over the last year and a half to 2 years of a recession. This is a really bad time to do anything except codify what the court ordered. That's the cheap way. It's the easy way. And nobody said anything about the current system, the 10-1 system, being broken. And as a previous speaker said, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Thank you.
Hello again, Melissa Luxon. I just wanted to reiterate for some folks with the school board, understanding that there are still at-large members of the city representing districts around the city. Their terms were not up, just like city councils. So while it was unfortunate that some districts didn't get to choose in this election their new school board member, they will get that option in 2024. But I also would like to point out that in January of 2022, Vice Mayor Wilson voted against a settlement of $1.6 million and voted in favor of spending more than $10 million to appeal the case after a federal court judge ruled that the voting system that got her elected was unconstitutional, has been since inception, and required supervision to establish a new voting system to ensure fair representation. Instead of being a good steward of our tax dollars, Vice Mayor Wilson and other council members spent millions on attorney's fees on a case still under judicial review. The city of Virginia Beach cannot even blink without getting Judge Jackson's approval, but we have council members scheming ways to screw over the electorate. These elected council members should do themselves a favor and remember that the power is with the people. And if you try to go with the voting system with more at-large seats, y'all better get bigger buildings to hold meetings in. If city leaders think I'm a problem now, you haven't seen anything yet. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So thank you all for your comments tonight. Remember that the findings from these listening sessions, along with the surveys, the email findings, the public city council hearing, will all be compiled for the council to review at the end of the session of the summer. Now, thank you all for coming tonight. Please tell your neighbors, your friends about the following sessions for the next few days so they can attend and share their voice as well. Thank you all for coming. Jane, do you have anything to share?
Just to close up, you all have been lovely tonight, and we've captured your comments and the emphases that were made by people that were at the podium or at the mic. And I think it bears repeating, given how many local jurisdictions we work with, that we are very impressed at the level of engagement process that's going on. We've had a lot of positive feedback in the previous sessions. Is that my time? We've had a lot of comments in the previous sessions about appreciating being able to come out and be heard. And I will just say exactly what Elise said to close this up, and that is let everybody know about the remaining sessions. We really want to hear from you because we have been asked by City Council to get that word back to them. All right, good night, everyone, and drive safely if you're driving, going home.
Thank you.